Hello friends, how are you doing? I hope everybody is healthy and safe. I had mentioned to you earlier in another video that I was going to do a video about spinning, and I think it's very important, and I want to talk to you because I know that some of you have purchased our spinning boards on our website and you may be using them in your classrooms or in your homes. And spinning on a board is something that needs to be monitored. So for our shelter in place time, and some of you are at home, you're wondering, what can I do for vestibular stimulation if I don't have a spinning board, or how do I use it if I do? In our Ready Bodies Learning Minds Motor Lab, this spinning board activity is actually an intense simulation of what should be a typical stimulation in a child's life. In their daily life of a typically developing child, there will be a lot of movement where they'll be spinning in a variety of different ways or moving in a lot of different ways over long periods of time. And so that's the natural development. But what we've done in the Motor Lab is create an intense simulation of that. So this is not necessarily what you may be using at home. Vestibular stimulation is the registration of an experience of head movement. And so that head movement and body movement are registered, and they're both very, very important for development. It even supports eye movement, eye tracking even across a page. In fact, a myriad of other systems in your body are supported by the vestibular system. In our book, on page 59, chapter 4, there's a whole bunch of description of what the vestibular system is about, all the way up to page 71. So that will help you understand what the purpose is. But as you see in our book on page 184, I believe, 185, we have rules for using the spinning board. And that's a very important thing to remember. Some of our rules are that they are allowed to push 10 times with one hand, then they must stop for 20 to 30 seconds. And we train them to do that by having them recite things, and then push 10 times again with another hand. You can see then in our stations, which our stations run a minute to a minute and a half apiece, that these moments in the motor lab while they're spinning are very limited, because they may be able to push 10 times with one hand, rest 20 seconds, and push 10 more times with another hand, and then they move away from that 1 minute station and go do something else. They do not remain at the spinning board and spin continuously. That's not what we want them to do. We don't want children to spin constantly. Even children who are typically developing can overload when they're spinning, and they will throw up, right? We don't want that. We can also overload, and they'll stand up and they'll stumble and they'll fall. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for stimulation that is just enough for them to be able to stimulate that system. Now, for those of you who might have children with special needs, your OT or your PT or your therapist has probably set up a program for them for vestibular stimulation, and they will tell you what certain vestibular activities you need, how long to do them, and how much and how often. And that's important for you to continue with. But we do know that all children need vestibular stimulation. So in the programmatic way that we created it for the Motor Lab, it's very short and it's monitored by an adult. But here you are at home. And at this time during shelter in place, we need to change that a little bit. What we really need to do is encourage what would have been daily typical development. For those of you that have younger kids, let them roll on the floor. Let them roll down the hall on the way to their bedroom. Swings, go out and get in the swings and swing back and forth and swing side to side. Tire swings. In a tire swing, you can swing in a circle, but it's a really big circle, not a single axis circle like this is. So let the children monitor that themselves. Let them pirouette across the floor. Get out the blankets and roll them up and unroll them like what we call an enchilada. And that activity is a lot of fun. Those are all vestibular stimulations that allows movement of the head. For our older children, maybe some of your older children are trying to get through their class times and they're having difficulty studying for a long time and sitting still at home. Then schedule an activity that's a vestibular stimulation. Schedule time for them to be out in the hammock and read. Schedule time for them to get on the bicycle and ride down the driveway. Schedule time for them to maybe even take a hammock. You could even create this. You could take a hammock and hang it in a doorway with the two ends together. Make a chair out of it. They could sit in that and read and rock gently and spin slowly and gently and do their homework. That is the typical kind of movement that should happen in our children on a daily basis. It's difficult to manage that in the classroom, and that's why these simulations of that activity were created in our motor lab. Movement that the vestibular system registers is very, very important. It actually is essential to our attention span. It is essential to our stamina. It is essential to eye control movement. It is essential to our development as a whole. And so, how many of us feel great after we go for a walk or a run? We do, don't we? We feel calm and we feel energized. And that's what kids need that movement for at home now too, while they're trying to do schoolwork in place. Don't forget to supply your students with movement, but please don't also forget that movement drives our whole being, including our cognition. I hope you guys stay safe and stay well, and remember, God is in control. Thanks. Talk to you soon.